Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday morning, and we're past the midpoint in June, approaching the first day of summer. And the weather map still has a pretty active system moving through the Great Lakes and rapidly approaching the northeastern U.S., where most of the severe weather activity will be today. And you can see that feature right here. Some trailing thunderstorms there through Arkansas. This big feature moving through the upper atmosphere here. And this is kind of interesting. You can kind of see an upper level ridge developing by watching these clouds right here. See how they stream? So a big high developing there. That's the start of the hot air dome that's going to traverse the country here about over the next week or so. Take a look at the HRRR simulated radar. This is a high resolution model that's run every hour, but every 6 hours they run it out for 2 days. And shows you a lot of rain, and then obviously some thunderstorm activity in Maine down to coastal areas of Delaware, and also an outbreak of thunderstorms out here through Minnesota, swiftly going into Wisconsin. A very typical kind of a slide pattern that develops this time of year, where it is very common for high pressure to develop out west and thunderstorms in the northern plains to kind of slide east, southeast, and oftentimes they are severe because they're close to the jet stream. For today, this is what the jet stream looks like. So we have this dip in the jet stream out over Ohio, and that's what's fueling these thunderstorms. So the basic structure here is that you have enough wind shear through a deep layer to be able to hold supercells together, and that's the first ingredient for organized thunderstorms that are severe. So we have a level 3 out of 5 here from Richmond, Virginia, up to New York City, basically, right in that corridor, including our nation's capital. Well, level 2 from Maine on down to Charlotte, and then that level 1 kind of arcing back to where you saw those thunderstorms on the radar, kind of a trailing edge there. More stable air certainly has worked its way in through Missouri, Illinois, where they had tornadoes reported yesterday. And also, we're looking at this kind of a tongue of level 2 that goes from the North Dakota into the Minneapolis area for those thunderstorms you saw developing over the northern plains. The tornado threat is really only a threat, and it's only a level 2, a 2% risk of tornadoes from Maine down to Richmond. So it kind of mirrors that area of enhanced risk that I showed you on the actual outlook. Nadocast has a tornado threat in way up in almost into Canada, northern parts of New Hampshire, and basically almost out of New England, and maybe a little risk there in southern Canada. But this time of year, the tornado risk starts to drop, but the severe weather risk can still be going strong where there are active jet stream patterns. The SIPS model does have the Carolinas forecast to be the maximum area of probability for any type of severe weather, but there's also a little bullseye up there around Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont. CSU, this is Colorado State's learning machine. And by the way, there are lots of other AI products out there, and I'm looking at those on to see what kind of development stage they're in. And if I see that they are produced on a regular basis, I'll start presenting those to you. They're becoming very popular. Anyway, that's kind of a side note. This is CSU's model. They have the tornado frequency higher in New England. And then it's interesting here, they have the hail probability really much higher across the northern plains, and the wind probability very high for this time of year, 30% in that narrow corridor there that did include that enhanced area. If we look at the jet stream for Friday, this system exits the northeast coast. Big ridge of high pressure is developing here. Again, that's where the hot air dome is beginning to develop and move and shift this way. And then a pretty vigorous low pressure system aloft here coming ashore in Washington and Oregon with stronger jet stream level winds. So as long as you have this wind flow that supports the development of a supercell, you're going to have the possibility of severe weather. And a lot of times in the summer, you might get some out here ahead of this, but a lot of times you get it because there's not enough unstable air out here to support the thunderstorms. So you need 2 ingredients, really. You need that bulk shears, that's what this mostly represents, and you need unstable air. So this is the favorable jet stream, but not much instability. This is an okay jet stream, but a lot of instability. So I said all that to explain this. That's why there's a severe weather outlook for the northern plains from North Dakota over to the UP of Michigan, including Minneapolis. for tomorrow, Friday, level 2 out of the 5 that they talk about. CSU has a tornado probability right in that area exactly. So, again, if you have a strong enough jet stream, you can still get that favored low-level wind that you need for thunderstorms to produce tornadoes, and especially when the thunderstorms first initiate, because so often this time of year they develop into squall lines that can produce tornadoes, but the individual cells initially, when I've seen them, and this happened to me when I chased the other day, the tornado was produced when the storm first developed, and then it became a Boeing segment and just didn't do much after that. But anyway, so on Friday you have pretty much conjoined areas of both tornado, hail, and wind probabilities, with the wind probabilities highest. You want to watch out around central parts of Minnesota on Friday. Now we go ahead to Saturday. This shifts east with the jet stream a little bit. Remember the hot air dome? It's easily visible because there's nothing forming there. But the tornado risk is actually fairly substantial for the UP and even the northern part of the lower peninsula of the state of Michigan. On Sunday, the jet stream here, this is the high pressure dome that shifts eastward with its 90 plus almost 100 degree temperatures, if not a few 100s underneath that. Jet stream very vigorous from the Four Corners up to North Dakota. That's on Sunday, so not surprisingly, the CSU Outlook has the highest probability of any severe weather up here. The Storm Prediction Center hasn't pulled the trigger on that yet. They look for 30%, so they're looking for, they look for 15 and 30, so they're looking for the yellow. So that kind of gives you an idea that once the humans look at it, they may agree with that assessment there and maybe put a forecast for that area for tomorrow. That's Sunday. It's day 3, so they wouldn't update it today, I don't believe. I have to check, but they certainly would update that tomorrow if they're going to do it at all. On Monday, Chicago, back to Des Moines, covering all the lower peninsula of Michigan, has a severe weather threat. You can see a theme here. It's definitely shifted north. And then in the east, just kind of a spackling of severe weather threats on Tuesday. On Wednesday, it really settles down quite a bit as this hot air really takes over, and that's day 7, essentially. So that's the next 7 days, including today. And we'll take a look at these NIU composite supercell indices. It's not surprising. This is the next 7 days. It's catching the wave here of today's activity leaving, and then this is accumulated. So every pixel for the next 7 days is assigned a probability. So it accounts for multiple waves, possibly, of severe weather, and that's certainly the case in the northern plains. And then getting into the first couple of days of July here, it settles down a little bit. Just some evidence of some cooler, drier air working its way across the plains, with the hot spot shifting to Colorado and parts of New Mexico. And then on July 3rd through the 9th, back to the northern plains, and then it looks as if we might get maybe a little bit of jet stream activity further south. That would put that little bullseye back on the map, although not as probable as it would be across the high plains. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day 1 because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.